So my name is Hafiz Juma. I'm the creative director of AIM Group. I work alongside Nadeem Juma, who's my brother and chairman of AIM Group, and Paul Bomani, who's the general manager of AIM Group. So as Paul previously spoke to you about, AIM Group started actively in the industry in 2011, and we started working as a digital agency with a number of clients, big blue chip clients especially. And over that time, the digital landscape has grown tremendously. Through that, though, we've also noticed, especially with the types of consumers we engage with on a daily basis, that there's a dire need for relevant and localized content in this market. Content that speaks to the consumer, not issue-driven, so donor-funded, or low budget and, for lack of a better term, cheap. And I think we've been noticing this over a period of time with the number of blogs that have increased in this market from 20 to over 100, and the type of content that they're trying to push out. And what you see is when one of the individual blogs does release relevant, important, contextual content, everyone jumps on the bandwagon and wants to push out that same content. So there's a real need in the market for people pushing out relevant, important content from in all genres as well, from entertainment to news to sport, the works. And we see ourselves as being able to fill a vacuum in that space. One, through our digital know-how and leveraging the online space as a distribution platform, because the way content is traditionally distributed in the market is through physical networks, and what that usually results into is the distribution network running as a cartel and really determining the type of content you create, which we feel doesn't give the artists room to actually produce what they want to produce. So coming from the side of a digital distribution platform, we feel that if we provide the infrastructure that requires a creator to actually create what type of content they want, we'll see a better quality of content coming into the market. There's a number of blogs out there that we have very close relationships with, one of them being Jimmy Forums. And they are the largest blog in Tanzania and the most visited website. And they sit on a lot of content aggregated by community. So it's really content that the community, consumers and the community is determining what type of content they want on this platform. So we're trying to work with them to see how can they leverage that content and create more interactive, innovative content for their platforms. And additionally, we're working with a lot of upcoming startup production companies, people who have a lot of innate talent, a lot of drive and ambition, but unfortunately are being forced to produce movies that sell for really low budgets. One of the production companies I was recently talking to actually told me that the way that projects are funded in this market is the distribution network would determine a fixed fee for a particular movie. So for instance, if it was 15 million shillings per movie, and they're required to develop 3 movies off of that budget. And what the production team usually turns around and does is creates a single movie and splits it up into 3 parts. So it's seen as 3 individual movies, so they can get paid for 3 individual movies. Just because the budgets being offered don't allow for content to be developed at a acceptable, marketable quality. So we're going to change that by, one, working with a lot of these production companies and individuals and facilitating the development of their content so they don't have to rely on the distribution network to fund their project, or the broadcaster to pick up their series or film and in turn asking them to pay airtime. So we're actually willing to front the upfront cost to develop this content, to actually allow these producers to develop what they want. On the flip side, we're going to develop a distribution network online that will allow us to be involved in the type of content that's being produced and allow us to get into some original productions. I think a good comparison would be to consider it a hybrid Netflix strategy, but really making it relevant for Tanzanians in a way that actually makes sense for this market. It definitely is a challenge, and through some of our projects, especially, particularly one we recently did for the Kilimanjaro Music Awards, which we live streamed, had exclusive content only available online. We noticed that through looking at the stats after the event, we noticed that out of our 20,000 plus viewers, 11,000 of them were consuming this content through mobile. And this was a 3-hour event, so these individuals weren't consuming all of the content, but chunks. So we noticed that a big majority of our viewers are going to be mobile users. So we definitely have to develop content that caters to a mobile user, caters to smaller screen sizes, bandwidth dependencies, and time limits as well, because what we need to do is make sure that these individuals are able to consume short but bite-sized, relevant content without breaking bank with the data costs involved.
Right.
So we're doing more than looking at video content. We're looking at music content. So we made an investment recently into a music platform for distribution. We're looking at digital magazines. So there's a spectrum of content that we're looking for, and we're seeing these very quick growth areas where people are having a difficult time either monetizing or being able to do kind of the quality control to commercialize their products. So you have this intelligent person who has a great idea, they can't convert it into a business. And that's the kind of content we're looking at. And like Hafiz said, from 20 blogs 2 years ago, there's over 100 blogs. So there is a lot more consumption, and these guys are getting crazy amount of traffic. He mentioned KTMA, the Kilimanjaro Music Awards, where we did our live stream. We had over 20,000 viewers, 17,000 unique. We were expecting 1,000. So these are people who paid for data services to log in and look at, watch something. So I think there's a lot of models that emerged from there as well. If you want to stream video content, can you partner with an operator and say, do it as a value-added service, 200 shillings, and I get the episode and I'm not charged for data as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of experimenting in terms of how we deliver the content, but there's opportunities from everything from video, music, actual digital content, so magazines, everything. I think there's scope for everything in Tanzania at the moment.
I think just to go back on the first thing I said, that there is content already being created in this market. The only problem is it's usually issue-driven or budget-dependent. And if you create novel ideas to create content on a low budget, that is good because you're not dependent on all these other variables, then I think there's a huge amount of possibility of the type of things we can do.
When you talk about curating content, really what we see our role as is initially is a facilitator. We have relationships with the producers who are having a hard time getting their content out there, be it music, video, whatever. We have relationships with the advertisers, and we're able to invest to take this forward. So yes, that's, as a facilitator, that's our first goal. In terms of curating content, deciding what content goes out there, deciding who we work with, our model is completely open. There's a lot of people in Tanzania with a lot of talents. You've got great writers, you've got great filmmakers, great musicians who are doing nothing because they are having a difficult time in the industry as well. So we're bringing them all in to help us with that role of how do you curate this content? What is relevant? What isn't relevant? What should we be investing into to drive out there? So it's not like we're going to try and do everything ourselves. I think it's our initial goal is kind of to shake up the industry. From there, start producing our own.
I think we're heavily invested in collaboration. Like Nadeem mentioned, we know we can't do everything under the sun and we can't do it ourselves, but we know we do have a role to play in the ecosystem, and if the ecosystem doesn't exist yet, how can we help build that ecosystem? And that's kind of where we see ourselves.
As the space grows, we see our role more as being facilitators, and one of those roles is going to be to act as an investor. In Tanzania and East Africa as a whole, you've seen this kind of angel investor VC model come in that hasn't been very successful. The VC model is based on kind of quick return, quick exit, But what you see is entrepreneurs kind of they become very worried about growing their idea because they don't know what the long-term goal of the VC is. And angel investor is seen as free money that's issue-driven. So overall in Tanzania, and I think even in Kenya, we haven't heard a lot of success stories once VCs have come in. The way that we're looking at investment is as a long-term business. So we would have board presence, we would be involved with strategy, we would actually help build the business model as well as put in money. And we're looking at a range of investments. So initially, obviously, we're looking at content. So we're looking at working with producers, buying into blogs, music distribution platforms. But separately to that, we're open to really anything in the tech industry and the creative industry, I would say. So a great example is last Thursday, I was sitting at one of the tech hubs here getting pitches. And we got pitches from bus ticketing systems to health management systems to distribution platforms for airtime and electricity. So I think I got 10 pitches in that period. Of that 10, we've shortlisted to 3 that we'll take to the next stage of where we're going to look at their business plan, do some due diligence for potential investment. So I think Kenya is getting a lot of headlines and kind of seen as a leader in the space, but it's very different. One, the industry is much further ahead. You've got a history of formal education, the economy is a lot more developed, but their biggest benefit is they've got a great PR machine. They know how to market themselves. I would say arrogantly so, we've been trying to do the same thing. So in terms of raising the bar for Tanzania, AIM Group is at the forefront. We've been trying to do as many interviews, expose ourselves as much as possible. Last month we were rated as in the top 20 startups to watch in Africa. We came number 6. So we're trying to do as much as possible to expose ourselves and hopefully educate our peers as well, that you need to expose what you're doing. Don't be shy. Tanzanian culture is very shy. We're shy about bragging about things that we've done well, and we need to change that. We need to share what we're doing. And that's going to be the first thing, I think, to change the space. The second is we need a few more success stories. You can't always have the same people and the same projects being profiled. So we need to invest so we see a few more of these success stories like Kenya. And once you see those big success stories, I think in itself, Tanzania will rise. And we're making the investments.
And just to add to that, I think the reason why Kenya gets a lot of the spotlight as well, not to take anything away from them, is that it's also the fact that it's the necessary pit stop on a media outlet's African tour. Right now we have all the buzz about Africa rising, the emerging middle class, that Africa is the next hotspot for innovation, and really the places that get the most, the spotlight the most is Nairobi, Cape Town, Joburg, and Accra. Why? Because they're the most strategic places for any media outlet to fly in and out of and get a nice 5-minute story.